Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. I wanted to do something a little bit different today. I guess maybe it's not that different. It just is going to feature a little bit less collaging, a little bit more painting, probably a little bit of both. So what I have here is, this is a page at the very beginning of this spiral notebook that I started, where I originally did some watercolors on it just to prep it. And then I did writing for some journal prompts. I don't remember where the journal prompts were, but it was like a recording of them. And then I did some drawings to go along with what I wrote. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I think I did a little bit, I think I did ink here, or maybe I dabbed ink from another page onto here. And I kind of left it as is, and I didn't really like it. And I've honestly thought about tearing it out, but I did another spread on the page behind it, and I really liked the way that one turned out. And I also am trying to approach my practice without self-judgment, without being scared of having pages that turn out in ways that I didn't anticipate. And I'm also just trying to have fun and go into things without expectations. So something that I've been trying to do is incorporate a little bit more like painting and art process into my journal. Just because sometimes I honestly just like to mix it up, is pretty much all it comes down to. So I'm just gonna kind of start laying some stuff down. It is gonna have some collaged pieces on it. I don't know how everything is gonna end up like peeking through. And I really want this to just be something that develops on its own, and I wanted to take you guys along for the ride. So, ooh, there's a little glue popping out of that. One thing that I am doing this week is I am working in the book, or in the guided journal, The Imaginary World of Blank. It's one of the journals by Keri Smith, and I'm not gonna lie to you, I used to avoid making art almost like the plague. I did not want to make art. I wasn't an artist. That was not for me. That was not what I was meant to do. First and foremost, I've always been a writer. I didn't have what I considered to be, and I guess what I was told was, a natural talent for art, or like natural artistic ability. And it wasn't the kind of space that I could like disappear into. So I was always intrigued by the, Keri Smith did the Wreck This journal, guided journals. I was always intrigued by them, but honestly, it's not something that I was very interested in. And then I saw the Explorer Adventure ones, the How to Be an Explorer of the World, Pocket Scavenger, and I had not seen the Imaginary World one. And a creator on Instagram, I believe it was Stargardener, shared a little bit about working in that journal. Sorry, I'm just looking in my paper bin. One of the things I really like when I'm looking for collage papers, just an aside, is blurred images. I think it gives a really cool effect, and it's a cool effect on a page, like as a photograph for a magazine, but it's also a cool effect when you add it to a collage. Anyways, Stargardener had posted about writing and working in this Imaginary World book, and last winter when I had first started journaling again, I started kind of collaging and playing around with this Imaginary Explorers Club, which is kind of the theme of my Patreon a little bit, at least the titles and like the names behind it. And I saw that Stargardener had shared that, and I was so intrigued because it was so much like what I had been journaling about at the beginning of the year, and the idea just like couldn't fully come to me. I don't know if you guys are big on the idea of like inspiration as like channeling, but it was almost like the idea was there, but it wasn't ready to fully come through yet, or I wasn't fully open to receive it yet. But it just reminded me of being a kid, and actually, you know what it reminded me of is, I don't know if you guys grew up in the day and age of watching Rugrats on Nickelodeon, but it reminded me of that, of like wandering around the world and everything being like, I don't know, a lot bigger than it actually is, but because it's in your world and it's happening to you, it's a lot bigger, and it was interesting. So anyways, I went and I ordered the imaginary world of blank. Mine is Star Moth, obviously, my alias. And I ordered it immediately, and I've been working in it. I work in it in the actual book, but I am also using my Moleskin Expanded, which I have right here, just an aside. Just want to share with you guys. I had to switch out a couple stickers on the front because one of them was falling off, but look at how I'm gonna be doing a video about my approach to that, because it's actually been a little bit different than what I normally do. I've not been doing like strict spreads for that. Anyways, yeah, so I've been working in my Moleskin Expanded, and I've been working in the actual book. And I'm trying to take it slow. I'm trying to contemplate and really understand, and I've already ordered How to Be an Explorer of the World. And then someone else, I believe it was somebody shared from the Secret Message Society Instagram page. They shared, and it was about the Wander Society, and that was one I had not heard of, and luckily I had an Audible credit and I was able to order the audiobook, and I started listening to it this morning, and obviously it just kind of like, you know, it's about wandering. It kind of is channeling. Wandering is opening yourself up to exploration. Wandering as observation. You know, something that I noticed when I was starting on my spiritual journey again, and especially I joined TikTok for a short time, and I'm not on it anymore because it was a little draining to my mental health, to be honest. And mainly it was one of those ones where I would get on there and just scroll endlessly instead of being able to put my phone down, and that's just not healthy for me. But something I noticed when I started on my spiritual journey again, and especially when I got on TikTok, was everybody talking about, especially like in, you know, witchcraft circles, but also in other spiritual circles, talking about receiving messages from the universe, talking about their intuition opening, and, you know, whether it was God, or if they were a pagan, it was their deities, or it was spirit, or their ancestors, or whoever. You know, they were seeing all these signs for the first time, and I just was so captivated by that. I just remember thinking how magical to open yourself up to a spiritual experience, and then to have all this magic come through, and to just know without a doubt that that's what it's for. And I think that, number one, I believe that your experiences as you believe them, especially in the realm of like signs and like your spirituality, I think that that is what it is. It is what you believe. It is what you put your energy into. But I also think that what I noticed is that I started kind of looking for signs. Started paying attention more. I would spend some time looking. We had moved into our new house last December, and I started paying attention and looking out the window more. Watching the wildlife, seeing what animals came across my path. I know we have like so many rabbits around here. It's pretty magical just to witness them and to have them be in such close proximity to us. But I started opening myself up more, And, you know, my inner critic and my inner skeptic was like, well, that's not a message from anybody. That's just, you know, everybody around, it's a small town and everybody around here has a garden, so there's rabbits wandering by. Just a side note, a lot of what I'm using to collage is just scribble pages that I use to like get my markers to work. Or this was to dab off my paintbrush. This was to dab off extra water from a watercolor. So your collage papers don't always have to be planned. And I think that's important because I find sometimes my best collage pieces are the ones that are just like scrap papers that I've like wiped off a mess on. But that's a side note. Anyways, my inner critic would just kind of start going crazy, telling me all of these things, trying to disprove the magic, basically. And something that I have kind of come around to recently is that, number one, anything that we want to be magic pretty much can be magic. It kind of comes along with noticing the everyday, being present in your life. And I think I talked about this in a previous video, but I think it's interesting, you know, the idea of you're getting all of these signs from the universe and you're interpreting them through the lens of the spirituality that you're practicing. You're a Christian, it's signs from God. You're a pagan, it's signs from Aphrodite. You know, you're just kind of spiritual, it's signs from your higher self or your spirit guides, or, you know, it's just the universe talking to you, or it's synchronicities, whatever it is. It's coming through and it's in a form that you can notice it. And I really just think that part of that, you know, divine presence that we bring to our lives and that observation that we take with us, especially when we go down a spiritual path, or even, I think this is why creativity and writing and art is so potent in a spiritual practice, is because you start paying attention more. And when you start paying attention more, details pop out at you and things, you know, the world starts to tell you little secrets that, you know, if you're just going about your day-to-day busy life, you probably wouldn't have noticed. And I think that that's interesting because what it comes down to is our attention. Where does our attention lie? So I took my daughter to daycare this morning and I listened to about almost half of the Wander Society, and I had just started it today. I'm probably going to re-listen to it as soon as I'm done. And I think that that is like the theme, you know, you find that your creative ideas get channeled when you're doing something like paying attention, giving yourself the opportunity to wander around, to explore, to, you know, have fun, greet the day with potential, just kind of let the world surprise you with what it wants to do instead of having a plan and planning out every single moment. Now, as a mother, especially as a mother with toddlers, I at first was like, there's no way that I can go on an unplanned walk with my kids. But there's times during the day where I could probably, because the Wander Society is all about wandering, and not wandering in like the sense of going on these epic vacations. I was a little scared about that because I'm not huge on traveling. Flying makes me nervous, and it's usually bad on my physical health because I get so anxious. But so I was worried that it was just going to be another book about, you know, oh, just go and travel the world, which isn't accessible to everybody, right? You know, you either have kids or you have, you know, responsibilities. You don't have vacation time. You don't have the money to travel. Your body can't handle the stress of traveling. You know, it's not something that we can all just hop up and do. So when I see an idea that's intriguing and all it is just, you know, more of this idea of like, just, you know, use your life savings and go travel the world. Like, what's the big deal? It gets a little frustrating. especially as somebody who has struggled and recovered financially a handful of times due to addiction and mental health issues. I feel like it's not very cognizant of the fact that not everybody is in a safe space to do that. So the Wander Society more approaches it as just like meandering, taking time to go for a walk, taking time to meander about in an area and pay attention. And I think that is just, number one, I think it's another form of meditation. This wandering can be another form of meditation. It can be a way for you to actively engage in the world around you, for you to kind of take a little mini break, a mini vacation, if you will, from the demands of a society that, or not a society, but a system that doesn't really care if you're struggling, that doesn't really care if you're not built for what it is that they're expecting you to do. And I think that this is a really cool concept. So, more on that to come. Like I said, I just started listening to the book today. I haven't had a chance to enact any of it yet. It is cold, so I'm gonna have to bring out a little bit of my like winter hiking gear, but I wanted to share that with you guys and kind of just talk about where that is. And I think that when we talk about something like art journaling, something like mixed media art, something like participating in any form of creativity, it really comes down to this idea of, divine presence, paying attention to the details, getting in the zone, playing, not being attached to results, not doing something for the idea of productivity. I think that there's something powerful in that. It's radical. It kind of goes past what we are conditioned to think and what we are made to believe is our only way to contribute to society, which is to make things to sell. And when I started crocheting back in 2019 and I started getting kind of good, I was kind of put in the position where people were asking about things that I could make, and I started selling stuff. And I've always wanted to be a small business owner. I always wanted to make art and have that be like the way that I was able to contribute financially to my home and to society as a whole. And crochet just wasn't fully the way that I could do that. I do think that one of the ways that I'm going to be able to help people is by teaching. And that is something new for me. I also think that my writing is like one of the better ways that I'm going to be able to participate and contribute to the world in a way that's meaningful to me, but also meaningful to the people who will experience it. And, so I learned how to crochet, and then I automatically felt like I had to start selling stuff. And part of that comes from the fact that, like, if you do stuff for free, people are just always going to expect things for free. I used to do that with tarot readings on TikTok. And even though it helped me learn another layer of the tarot, was actually very, it was fun at first. And then it became not satisfying because people were getting angry because they weren't getting their readings quickly enough. There was a lot of call out activity there happening, and it was just not something that I wanted to do. And also, at a certain point you have to draw boundaries, and I didn't want it to become like a thing where I was feeling like people were taking from me and there was nothing that I was getting in return. And there was no energetic exchange. There was no show of appreciation. It was just like, oh yeah, here's your free stuff. Okay, bye. So that's kind of why, again, like with my Patreon, I decided to launch that because, I did it at what I thought was a very accessible price. I've left open in my Etsy and with some of my offerings, I've left open the options for trade because I don't want like a price point to inhibit people from being able to access things that I'm offering that is appealing to them. But I also don't want to burn myself out, you know? And what I try to do is I try to turn around and, you know, invest more of that money into the community and into my own personal development, which then turns back and goes back to the community that I'm cultivating on Patreon, or that I share on Instagram or Substack or here on YouTube. And it feeds into itself, you know? But creating for the sake of creating and getting to that point where you are just engaging with a creative process, not for the end point of selling it, but just to be a creative being, to do what it is that you're meant here to do. I think that there is power in that, and I think that that is something that a lot of people, especially in the spiritual space, are finding and sharing about recently, and I'm very excited to see how that develops. I'm excited to see where it takes all of us. I still have some red paint here on my palette. I'm just trying to use it. So this is a page, to be honest, it's not one that I'm super crazy about, but you know, it's one that I'm making just for the fun of it. It's one that it's going to be a great memory because I made this YouTube video to it. I can come back to it. I can see the process that I did. But also, you know, it's just gluing things down, making layers, adding paint, doing things that are a little bit out of our comfort zone. Painting with acrylic paint is not in my comfort zone. I don't know why. I avoided painting for a very long time. And when I do paint, watercolors is usually where I am more comfortable. You will see that a lot when I share work. You will not see acrylic as much. That's why part of the reason why I was so proud of my acrylic tile painting that I did of a composition notebook, kind of like Harriet the Spy's notebook. I was very proud of that. So I'm kind of reaching the point here where I feel like I'm getting a little crowded with how much I'm adding. So I've got some gouache here. I'm gonna see if I can activate it. It's kind of muddy because it was like some colors all added together. I was trying to make a certain color. I did not do it very well. I've taken some classes when it comes to art and painting since I started art journaling, and you know, I have a hard time with certain processes. I have a hard time following instructions. My ADHD and just my like impatience just isn't having it, you know? But I try to take these classes and it's fun. I learn techniques and stuff, but usually if it's like a step-by-step process, I'm just not gonna follow the whole thing, no matter how hard I try. I guess, what is it they say? That's my toxic trait, is that I can't follow instructions. It's actually kind of bad. Part of the reason, like when I was learning how to crochet, and part of the reason I was always crocheting stuff, and I actually have a lot of projects that just didn't ever go anywhere, is because of the fact that I freehand everything. I don't like, I followed some patterns. I wrote a pattern or two. And I just don't like it. I like just going and figuring it out and not having to like follow a formula, not having to follow instructions. And that's part of why I think that when I kind of hit my block at the beginning of 2020 with crochet and knitting, I think that's where journaling, you know, I started just collaging papers and stickers, but I think that's where journaling kind of came in and saved me in a way, because it kind of fed that part of me that wanted results, right? You know, it wasn't a crochet project. We're talking hours and hours and hours. And then, you know, if you're freehanding, you might get to a certain point and just hate it and have to scrap it all together, which I've done more times than I care to admit. And so I think that something where I can work on it, and if I don't like it, I don't have to return to it because I have a finished product. I either like it or I hate it, and then tomorrow I can work on something different. And I think that's part of what has been so pivotal for me in this process. Yeah, I just really, I can't even stress enough how like difficult it was for me to follow patterns when I was doing it. There's also like the fact that, you know, especially like amigurumi, it is when you're making stuffed animals or you're making dolls, things like that, it's hard because you're usually making a lot of pieces and you're crocheting really small, and I have toddlers, you know, I can't, working on that around toddlers when they want your attention, they want to be in all of your stuff, was just like not super sustainable for me. And then I would get frustrated because I'd be working on something and I would lose my spot or I would lose my stitch count, you know, and that's not good for anybody. I don't want my process and what I want to be doing to make it so that I'm upset with, you know, another way that I have to show up in the world, which is being a stay-at-home mom. Okay, so I don't hate it now as much as I did a few minutes ago, and I think I'm gonna call it quits. This, you know, was a kind of a messy process, and I just rambled and made marks with my paintbrush and used a couple different formats, used a page that I wasn't crazy about in the beginning, and this is what we turned out with. And I think that this just shows like you can start over, you can paint over things, you don't have to keep things the way that they are, and yeah, you just need to have fun with it. So hit the subscribe button, and I'm hoping to have a video up later this week about my Moleskin Expanded and about the process of writing daily pages. If you guys have any video requests, leave them in the comments, and don't forget to check out all my links for Instagram, Substack, and Patreon. Okay, thanks. Bye.